Tonight, from the edge of America, the Bloods and the Crips, two of the most notorious street gangs, have set aside their feud and united to target police in Baltimore.
Gangs, including the Black Guerrilla family, Bloods, and Crips, have entered into a partnership to take out law enforcement officers.
The Supreme Court is hearing arguments on the issue of same-sex marriage. Their ruling could settle the debate once and for all.
They're not politically powerless. They should be treated fairly. There's no question about that. But to be treated fairly does not require you to change the definition of marriage.
And Carly Fiorina believes that only a conservative can unite the grand old party.
Only a conservative can unify this party, and we do not have to change our beliefs and our convictions to reach independents and Democrats either.
All this, plus our Mama Luke of the day and more next on The Rick Amato Show. Welcome, everybody, from the edge of America. I'm Rick Amato. We are following this One America News developing story. Just one day after Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake announced that she had given rioters space to destroy property, the rioting and looting escalated to dangerous new levels. Shop after shop has been burned and ransacked as business owners fled for their lives. One business owner said he called the police 50 times, but nobody came. One shop owner, a man named Sung Kang, a Korean immigrant whose business was destroyed, said, "This is America. I wanted to come here to follow my American dream, to make something of myself." Meanwhile, intelligence officials have put out a warning that gang members are sending text messages calling on people to kill all white police officers, and they fear it could spread nationally. Joining me this time from New York is former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik. Bernard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Bernie, let me ask you, what goes through your mind as you watch, along with the rest of us, what is happening in Baltimore right now?
Well, I think it's a shame. You have, these the kids out there and rioters that have basically demolished major portions of the city. It's going to take a couple decades to recoup, if they can, the losses. People have lost their livelihood for maybe forever in some circumstances. It's just, it's outrageous. And it's outrageous that Baltimore and the mayor didn't have the resources that they needed to secure the city. You got somebody calling the police 50 times. I mean, it talks a lot about their staffing, about their preparation, their planning yesterday. I think it's a shame.
Is there any action that you'd like to see that has been absent on a political level from a leader, whether it be at the state level or out of the White House? Would you like to see the White House do something differently, the governor do something different, the mayor do something different?
No, I don't think. I don't think the White House. This is a local issue. This is an issue that has to be dealt with by the mayor and by the governor. Last night around this time, I was quite curious as to where was the National Guard, where was the governor, and come to find out that he was waiting for a call from the mayor when that call never came, or it came too late. The reality is this is a local and state issue that has to be dealt with by them. And hopefully they're going to have a different outcome tonight. I know New Jersey sent 150 troopers, state troopers, down to Baltimore. The National Guard is out. The Maryland State Police are there in full force. I feel bad for the cops that were on duty last night because they didn't have the backup and the resources they needed to deal with this.
What are the consequences here? Do you believe there are near-term or long-term consequences for police departments across America? Of course, they're in Baltimore. The way they're respected, the way that the officers go about doing their jobs?
Well, you know what? Every time we have an incident like this, the respective area broad brushes the police in a certain manner, and that's, we're seeing that right now in Baltimore, in Maryland, and I'm sure it'll grow across the country as well. The reality is, you're talking about one arrest. And the shame of that is this kid died. Nobody knows what he died from yet, other than he had a severed spine. But nobody knows the cause. I've heard it would happen in the paddy wagon. Sometime on the way to the precinct or station house. The reality is that kid couldn't walk when they were putting him into the paddy wagon. There was something wrong with him. He was in distress. The key is we need to find out what happened. And if there was a problem with what happened, then somebody has to be held accountable. But right now, nobody knows. Nobody's paying any attention to it, because they're all tied up with this nonsense and these people trying to destroy the city.
The NYPD, obviously something you're very familiar with, has received orders out of Washington to start providing training on issues of race and not to offend anyone and so on and so forth. Do we have a problem, a systematic problem within police stations across America?
No, I don't think we do. And I've heard all this, the stuff about the added training, the extra training, the new curriculum. The reality is the stuff that I've heard so far is nothing that the cops in New York City don't get already. So I'm not sure how much more you can give them. New York City, I think their basic police academy now is 7 months. It may be even more. It was 6 months when I left in 2001. The reality is, I don't think they need more training. They need first-line supervisors to hold them accountable, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and not do what they're not supposed to be doing. So it's, that's the bottom line.
There are some of those who are going to say in politics who are going to use this as a reason to try and push forward the nationalization of America's police departments. What would you say to those who make that argument?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, people are going to say that. The reality is, that's the one thing you don't need. And economically, it would be unsustainable. I know there's people out there talk that stuff, but the reality is it can't happen. You couldn't afford it. The country couldn't afford it to happen. So it's, let's just get through Baltimore and try to quell the riots and keep the peace and find out what happened to this kid. That's the most important issue here. What happened to him? And if somebody did something they shouldn't have done, then hold them accountable. But don't destroy the city, in the meantime.
Bernard, you've pointed out that this is a local issue, local to Baltimore. It's perhaps a state issue where state resources need to be brought in. But some would say, and I'm one of those who would say that, unfortunately, President Barack Obama and former Attorney General Eric Holder have created an atmosphere where every time there was an incident involving a police officer, they sided against the police officer, created a air of sentiment and rhetoric in which they sent a message across the nation that the police officer was wrong, even when the officer wasn't, before those facts were bared out. Does that tie into what's happening? Go ahead.
You know what? Whether it's the White House, the president, the attorney general, or all these so-called civil rights leaders that do nothing but stir anarchy, no matter who it is, the reality is people talk before they have any clue what happened. There's all this stuff going on in Baltimore right now. Nobody knows what happened to this kid. Nobody. And that's wrong. We've got to, that should be the priority. Even in these other cases, whether it was Michael Brown in Ferguson or Garner in Staten Island, I said from the beginning, let the grand jury do its job. Let the investigators do their job. You've got investigators you've got city investigators, the DA's office, you've got the federal investigators. Everybody under the sun is looking at this. And in the meantime, there's people out there calling the cops murderers, calling for the death of the police department, calling them racist. They had no clue. They had no idea what happened.
Former New York City.
I think that's something that's really important.
I agree with you. Former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik, thank you for joining us. The violence and destruction in Baltimore are tragic, but perhaps not surprising. As I just mentioned, former Attorney General Eric Holder once called us a nation of cowards on race. But Eric Holder took every step, every action to polarize us on race. And every time a police officer was involved, Holder spoke words and made assumptions that sent a message to the entire nation that, in his view, the police officer was wrong, even when they weren't. The same, by the way, can be also said of President Barack Obama. On a different note, Dr. Elvita King, the niece of Martin Luther King Jr., said her uncle would be heartbroken if he were alive today and saw the violence and the rioting of black youth in Baltimore. And on a programming note, Dr. Elvita King will join me tonight as a guest on this show. As we go to a break, here is how one mother reacted when she saw her son rioting. Stay with me. From the Edge of America, I'm Rick Amato. We're back after this.
Your mask off! You want to be dead!